Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at PureMTGO.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Constructive Criticism YouTube channel. I'm Spencer. I am one of the co-hosts of Constructive Criticism and the producer and owner here at the Constructive Criticism Network. Today, you can see it, we're talking about Boomer Jund. This is really funny. I don't feel old enough to be called a boomer, but I get it in Magic. For those who don't know, Boomer Jund refers to value-based Jund decks of the past, such as the Bloodbraid Elf decks. Today we're going to be talking about Standard. Standard just got a new set, and I want to talk about the deck that I have weirdly put the most work into. Now, I say weirdly, but I actually have won, Utah States. I won with Jund midrange. I won my first PTQ with Teamer midrange. My best finish at an SEG was with 4-color midrange. 3-color midrange decks are kind of my jam, but it's weird because the card that I was the most excited for in this set was a ramp card, because ramp decks are my favorite. But this deck has definitely overperformed. It's got a lot of fun ofs, something that I love. It's got 3 ofs, lots of 2 ofs that do similar things. It's fun ofs do similar things. It's going to be really exciting to talk about this one, so let's dive in. Before we get into the deck list, I just want to quickly mention our sponsor over at PureMTGO.com. You can check them out, as well as their sponsor at MTGO Traders, and then join the Easy Game Media Discord for all the stuff like this. And if you are a Constructed Critic, meaning a patron supporter of $5 or more, you can join the Constructed Critics Discord for constructive criticism. Just head on over to patreon.com/ccmtg. With that being said, let's go to the deck. I'm going to go over the main deck first. This deck is pretty sweet. So we have 2 Bloodchief's Thirst. This is 1 mana removal spell. Catches a lot of things. Also has the ability to catch bigger things. We have Dig Up. This is going to be some of our early game mana fixing to try and get us to the right lands, as well as something that we can do late game to try and get some of our impactful spells. Valki is another dual mode card. You'll notice that that's a really big theme in this deck. This card is on the front end, can disrupt our opponent a little bit by taking a creature out of their hand, maybe even becoming that creature. I've definitely had this on the play become things like Luminarch Aspirant, for example. Next is a card that, for me, is one of the most underplayed cards in Standard, and honestly, I just think a super underrated card in Magic, and that is Bloodthirsty Adversary. This is another modal card. It can come down as a really late game card, it can come down as a mid-range card, and then depending on the matchup, it can even come down to pressure your opponent quickly or their planeswalkers. Next we have a card that was, once again, a card that I had pretty highly on the list of things coming out of a set, and that's Gallows Greeters. This card is 1 and a green for a 1/1. I'm going to read it because it's a new card. It has a line, so whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you do one of these things. You can put a 1/1 counter on it, you can create a tap treasure, and you can gain 2 life. The thing about this card is you can only do 3 of them in a turn, but that's okay. And the other thing is that it doesn't do it the turn it comes into play. Next up, we have 2 Shatterskull Smashing, kind of acting as modal cards, right? Like lands and a removal spell, and honestly offering you some 2-for-1 advantages. Next we have Inscription of Ruin. This is the card that I am least confident about in this deck. One of the things that you'll notice, though, is we have some really powerful 2-drops. It also offers you 2-for-1 potential, and it offers you way more than that as being removal. It's a modal card. This card does a lot in the deck. Next we have Fable of the Mirror. This is another one that you can put different things into your graveyard for things like your Bloodthirsty Adversary. You get to draw cards and then also just start creating token copies of things like Bloodthirsty Adversary or Gallows Greeters. You probably aren't going to do Gallows Greeters, but you can create stuff on the Kiki Jiki side. this card's really powerful and one that is, when we talk about cards that we think we're playing too many of, like the Inscription of Ruin being, it's been good enough, which is why it's still in the deck, but like there are going to be this card, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, and some other stuff, things that I think I'm maybe not playing enough of. We have one Briarbridge Tracker. This card's been really good. It's a really good thing to like curve after your Chariot, just having that clue token lying around, it just being a large body and stuff. It's been a pretty good fun of. Next up we have Ob Nixilis, the Adversary. Briarbridge Tracker has been really good with that card for what it's worth, just having a really large creature to sack to Ob. Ob has been pretty good. This is not like the best Ob deck. It doesn't revolve around Ob Nixilis, but it is a good Ob deck, and I think it's a good 2-of in this deck. Next we have Riveteers Charm. This is another card that I thought it would be okay. There are 2 more on the sideboard. I would not blame you for playing all 4 in the main deck. I think this card is insane. I thought this card would be good, and it has been above and beyond one of the best cards in the deck, whether it's being flashback with Bloodthirsty Adversary. It definitely gives this deck legs that I did not expect and makes you want to be the 3 colors instead of 2. We have 2 1-of Planeswalkers in Sorin and Arlen. Sorin only makes 1 token. It's actually the reason that I split them. I don't think that it would be wrong to play no Arlen and 2 Sorin. I think Gala Greeters. I'm going to have to get used to that one, guys. I think that this card likes a lot when you get to play multiple tokens in a turn. The thing is like, you do get to make a lot of tokens with Sorin, but you don't get to make as many tokens as you do with, Arlen. Honestly, though, Arlen getting things flash has also been helpful. There's been a lot of cool stuff. We have 3 Chariots. This is one that also makes 3 tokens. I could also see cutting the Arlen for the 4th Chariot if you decided that you just wanted to be an Ob Chariot deck. Arlen's been pretty good though. Like, both sides have been relevant, getting up there in mana, creating multiple tokens. What's funny is this Arlen actually used to be the 6 mana 6/6 that makes 2 wolves when it enters the battlefield, so that you could get like all 3 Gala Greeter triggers and stuff like that. And that was fine. I don't even think that would be wrong. I just think that tokens in this deck specifically, between Chariot, between Ob, between, the stuff with Gallows Greeters, there's just enough stuff for Arlen to be better at the lower mana cost. I could also see maybe the Sorin is supposed to be that 6-drop, but the next card that I want to talk about is Unleash the Inferno. This card, this is the most surprising card in Standard to me. I read this card during our Pick 2 set review. It was one of Abe's cards. I think it was one of his favorites. And when I read this card, I thought it was really funny. I thought it might be like a fun sideboard card. I have had this card as a 2-of, both in the main and one in the main, one on the side, throughout the entire time of this deck. Well, that's not true. I actually didn't have it originally. And the fact that it kills a Planeswalker and an enchantment at the same time with the excess damage is really relevant in this format, especially with Esper being, one of the most popular decks, and with just with Wedding Announcement being so prevalent in the format. This card's really good. It also kills the back end of the vampire dude. I don't remember his name, but this card has been really surprising for me, and definitely a card that you should look into. Next up, we kind of have our top end with 2 Loath Spider Queen and 2 Workshop War Chiefs. Woo! That was a tongue twister. Both these cards are great. I don't really need to tell people how good Loath Spider Queen is. The fact that she is able to really just take over games is the reason that she is there instead of the 3rd and 4th Workshop War Chiefs. The Workshop War Chiefs are in the sideboard. I just haven't found a matchup outside of tempo-y blue decks that Spider Queen isn't amazing. The fact that she's able to stabilize the board immediately, the fact that she's able to apply so much pressure She just does so much. She's good at once you enter the mid game. Lost Spider Queen can really take over what's going on. It's weird that it's a black card. It like almost feels like a green card in a lot of ways. I almost never emblem her, but you can. It certainly does happen. But the spiders are quite good. Them having reach, them having menace, the whole thing comes together really well. Really quickly, I'll go over the lands. We'll probably talk about the mana a little bit later, but we do have 1 Hive of the Eye Tyrant, 2 Swamp, 1 Takenuma, sure I said the wrong, Abandoned Mine, 1 Den of the Bugbear. This card is a new addition I've been really happy with. 1 Mountain, 1 Sukozan, Crucible of Defiance, 1 Boseiju, 2 Forest, 4 Blighted Stepway, I believe 4 Blighted Pathway, 4 Darkbore Pathway, 2 Necroblossom Snarl. This card I'm not sure on. I could believe that this card could be a lot of different cards. But right now this. I wanted the green black land, but I am not even convinced that this one is the right land. We only have 2 Timbercrown and Cragcrown Pathway. They're fine. The thing is that like your 1-drops are green and black. And you also like you have a lot of like you have multiple double red things. You actually have double across the board, but I just found that I wanted enough untapped things for dig up, but I didn't want too many things. And the fact that we're playing 2 forests also, and 2 swamp also changed that a little bit. Yeah, and then we have the Triumph. Well, it's not actually called that. It's the Ziatora's Proving Ground. This is the Tri-land cycle land for Jund, and it's quite good. Yeah, it draws your cards late. It fixes your mana early. You have enough cheap stuff to do things with your mana. It very rarely hurts you that it comes into play tapped. And also I think that you have enough stuff against things like mono white that you can afford it. So with that being said, let's kind of dive into what the deck is doing. So I want to talk about some key cards. I've given a brief explanation of everything, but I think there are some cards that are pretty key to what this deck is doing. The first one that I'll describe is the Modal Cards. I know that that's a lot of cards, but the fact that, Inscription of Ruin, Riveteers Charm, the Planeswalkers just by themselves, the Valki, the Bloodthirsty Adversary, the Dig Ups, the Bloodchief's Thirst, they all do this thing where they're good in multiple spots in the game and on the curve. And that's just true of mid-range decks, right? Like, it's just really powerful in mid-range decks. I just think that most of the mid-range decks that we've dealt with in the last few years ended up being really big decks. Like, they just kept shifting and shifting towards big mana decks. And I don't even think you need to do that with this deck. Between, like, the pressure this deck is able to apply, the disruption that it's able to apply, whether it's from, Go Blank and Inscription of Ruin, plus Bloodthirsty Adversary to do it again and again, plus Ob. There's just a lot of, don't worry about it, like, we're going to just disrupt you and do enough. So the modal cards are pretty powerful by letting you play that style of game. Then other key cards I would actually say are Gallows Greeters. Gala Greeters. I'm going to get that wrong a lot. This card was one that I didn't actually have in the deck until early this week. Or last week, I guess. I don't know what day it is. Either way, which is funny, because like you'd think, Spencer, weren't you high on this card? I just didn't expect it to be good in Jund. I thought that this was like an aggressive Naya card or something, like, I don't know, something like that. Like in token decks. And yeah, this is a token deck. But the thing is like, you don't have to do that much for this card to just be better than something like, let's say, Innkeeper. And the second that I had Innkeeper in this deck and was kind of looking at the list, I was like, why do I have Innkeeper in here instead of Greeters? Like, Innkeeper is fine, but Greeters does so much of what it does, plus more, that I would rather do that. And so we made the switch, and honestly, it has changed the deck a lot, and I think moved the deck quite a bit forward. The last thing that I'll say, as kind of like the key card, quote unquote, is it's probably, to be honest, the Chariots. Like, this, while I'm only playing 3, I do think this card is pretty key to the deck. You know, a lot of the cards are in the deck because of Chariot. If you think about, you know, Ob and Chariot stuff, that just goes without saying, but like, the things that I'm trying to do are make things that I want to make tokens off of. I think, you know, Sorin's tokens becoming Chariot targets is a really powerful late game. I think that having things that, you know, crew Chariot right away, like Arlen or Spider Queen or Briarbridge Tracker, those are interesting to me as far as, like, I can crew the Chariot right away. And you make a lot of concessions for that. You know, the Rhino tokens, the number of times where I have, you know, crewed it not with a Rhino, but instead blitzed the Rhino so that I could have the Rhino token later. It happens a lot. So I would say Chariot's kind of the other key card. I would say the mana base is pretty good for what it's worth. Dig Up solves a lot of the problems. I played as many as 4 Dig Up. I played 3. I'm pretty happy with where the mana base is at. You have a couple of problems, but I think that, you know, if you count the number of green sources, I think we ended up with, we have 6, 12, 15 green sources. Is that right? Oh, that might actually be, now I'm looking at it, that actually might be too small. We actually might be short a green source. It is 15. I think we actually are short a green source, which is good to know. You know, we're recording the deck tech. I do think that you probably want one more green source in this deck, especially when you're playing Dig Up. It probably means that you need to cut the Zokuzan Crucible Defiance, and you could probably just cut it for another pathway, to be honest. That being said, I think the mana is pretty good. You're not very weak to things like Field of Ruin. You have ban lands, you have spell lands. You have a lot of utility in your lands. You also just have ways to make different colors of mana between Gallows Greeter and Fable Mirror. Like, there's just, it's pretty easy to get your colors in this deck, and you know, that's impressive because, like, there's a lot of double color spells. I think the coolest interaction in this deck, I'll just mention it because it is cool. I think people know about it, but Chariot can copy the tokens of Ob. It is definitely powerful. One of the decks that did well in one of the recent challenges was just 2-color Ob. I have played against that deck a ton with this deck. While the matchup is it's difficult, I think it's this deck's favored. And a huge reason why is that you have Chariot and they don't. And I think Chariot is just still one of the best cards in the standard, and just getting to have that synergy is a pretty big boon for this deck. I'll read the sideboard. We have 3 Duress, 1 Infernal Grasp, 2 Bloodline Culling, 2 Riveteers Charm, 2 Outland Liberator, 2 Go Blank, 1 more Unleash the Inferno, and 1 Workshop Warchief. The deck makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Like, you want to go up or down on the curve, or remove the cards that do or don't matter in your mid-range decks. If my removal is not good, I want to disrupt them. I want Duress. If I need more removal, I want things like Infernal Grasp and Bloodline Culling. You know, Go Blank lets me once again battle those controlling decks. Riveteers Charm is one I actually, honestly, would probably level to find a way to play the 3rd one in the main and just cut the 4th one. I think that is probably like where this deck should end up. This card's insane. Like, it's good in basically every matchup. I don't know where to put it or what to cut because your creature count is so low and, like, you need a lot of the stuff that you have. So it's possible that maybe the sideboard is correct for them. But, you know, whether it's large creature decks, whether you need the instant speed, you know, use of your mana to put pressure on your opponent's mana, like, the card just not solves so many issues, but like plays in so many ways, I guess. It's pretty powerful. And then Workshop Warchief is just a powerhouse. Like the card is good in multiple matchups. It lets you go bigger or against certain decks if that's your idea. It also lets you stabilize pretty easily in matchups where you don't necessarily want to go bigger, but like you need that type of interaction. And then things like, Unleash the Inferno comes in against the decks where that card is good. You will know what they are. Like you will literally be like, I need things to get rid of enchantments, but I also need to deal with the board at the same time. This is the card that you're going to want. It's not just enchantments. I have used it against artifacts. I played against Tezzeret decks multiple times on Arena. I don't know about you folks, but like that's helpful there. Bloodline Culling, card that I was a pretty big fan of during one of our Pick 2 set reviews. I think I had it in my favorites. And this card, killing tokens, has saved my butt so many times already. It also just kills large creatures. Pretty huge fan. That's kind of it for the deck. Like, it's a mid-range deck. I think that the sideboard kind of explains itself. Sideboarding with mid-range decks is pretty easy. If there's anything that I would say that I haven't said, like I said, it would probably be a way to maybe play that Riveteers Charm. Maybe you don't want the tracker. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe you don't want the inscriptions. Maybe this is just better all of the time. But that is kind of where I would end up. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Give this deck a try. I have lots of 4-1s with it in the current arena events. I hope to get a bunch of 5-0s as I work on this deck in the time to come. As I said, I do think that I might be a Greenland short now that I'm doing the mastering the deck, but that's part of always improving. So thank you all so much. Don't forget to check out the rest of the Constructed Criticism Network, and we'll see you guys all next time with another deck here on the Constructed Criticism YouTube channel.